Path of Exile 2 is getting new classes and new content coming soon. I'm very excited about that because I've been playing the game. I've been wanting to make a video about for a while. So I'm going to see what Force Gaming has to say because he's pretty much in the know about everything that's going on. Let's check it out.
So Path of Exile 2 entered Steam Early Access nearly 2 weeks ago now on December the 6th, and already it's off to a roaring start, reaching a peak of nearly 580,000 concurrent players with over 55,000 user reviews and sits at a very positive rating. And those numbers are just on Steam. Keep in mind, the game also has its own separate client that no doubt many are using, and it's also available on consoles. This success, in my opinion, is
it's also available on the Epic Games Store, so you can get it there as well, which is where I got it.
It's very much so warranted. If you've not happened to see my recent coverage, I really like this game. Even in its current early access, unfinished state, it is thoroughly enjoyable and has brought me over 100 hours of entertainment already. And best of all, this is just the beginning.
I've been playing it for a little over 24 hours, and I just love it. I've been looking for a new game, and this is definitely my new game in the foreseeable future.
Only have access to roughly 50% of the game's planned content, the rest of which is expected to be added over the course of the coming 12 months. In today's video, sponsored by Path of Exile 2, I'll be going over what we know so far about some of that upcoming planned content. So what do we have to look forward to in
I was going to say we have a lot to look forward to.
Path of Exile 2 in the future? Let's find out. For starters, we are expecting the early access period to last somewhere around 6 to 12 months. GGG has said that they expect 6 months to be the minimum amount of time required in order for them to add all remaining content, but their goal is for this to not exceed a full year, which means ideally the game will be complete and entering 1.0 by December 2025.
It's already very polished for the amount of content that's in it already. So with just 50% of the game, it's incredible.
So the next question, of course, is what is the new stuff that's coming? Well, right on Steam, you can actually see their rough plans. In their answer to the question, how is the full version planned to differ from the early access version, they say, we are planning to add 3 more acts, 6 more classes, and all corresponding ascendancy classes, lots of skill gems and items, as well as more endgame content areas, bosses, and monsters. We are planning to be adding content to roughly double the size of the current game during early access and into release. All right. So
I mean, I'm not even in Act 1, and it's just amazing. It's very enjoyable. It's going to get harder. I know it is. The bosses are going to be hard. It's not meant to be easy. It's a challenge, so keep that in mind.
So let's go through that rough guideline in a bit more detail, starting with the new classes. Currently, we can play as one of 6 classes, each with a primary attribute focus and a skill tree, and most of which those also come with an associated weapon type as well. So there's the Warrior, who is a primary strength class using maces as their default weapon. Ranger is dexterity and uses bows. The Mercenary is dexterity and strength using crossbows. The Monk is dexterity and intellect using the quarterstaff, and the Sorceress and Witch are both primary intellect classes, and they don't actually have their own default weapons, although for the most part wands, offhands, and staffs are useful because they boost the things that they're usually focused on. But the Sorceress has got
like I've used a scepter and staff, the wand, I like playing from range. I'm not a big melee player, and I've heard some people say that melee isn't the best. They've switched from like a melee character, like the Warrior Monk to the Witch, for example. I've had a lot better times. Another thing to keep in mind as well.
At the elemental tree as her default, with the Witch having the occult tree as hers. Now keep in mind, these are all just the starting things. They're baseline attributes, either them being primary or hybrid, as well as the baseline weapons that they're starting with. All of this can, of course, be mixed and matched, and we're already starting to see builds doing a bit of that mixing and matching, but I digress. That is what we have currently, and the remaining are basically going to fill in all the gaps, because the ultimate thing is we're going to be in 2 classes for each main attribute as well as each hybrid pair. So there will be 2 primary strength classes, 2 dexterity, and 2 intellect classes, as well as 2 of each hybrid, with there being 2 strength and dexterity.
See, this is the stuff that it's difficult for me because I've never played an ARPG, and this stuff is like a foreign language to me. So I definitely have to watch a lot more of this. So if you're a noob like me, get into it. It's definitely gonna have to be some studying or some kind of like research going on, or just like watching videos is what I'm getting at to figure this stuff out. But if you're a veteran, then great, you understand it. You can help us out.
2 strength and int, and 2 int and dex. All right, so the first 2 classes that we know about are the druid and the huntress. We have actually seen gameplay for both of these, and it does appear likely that these will be the 2 additional classes we are probably getting first. Well, I would guess somewhere in the next few months here, although that is just a guess. They have not confirmed one way or another the exact timeline for both of these classes, so we will have to wait and see. All right, starting with the druid. The druid is going to be the strength intellect class, and their starting tree, the skill gem tree that's like their default, is the primal tree. In fact, you can see all of these trees
he morphs into a bear? That's
already
wicked.
in the game currently. Now, in human form, the druid is a caster that controls the elements, but you can also turn into several wild beasts, and we saw this in their gameplay video. You're automatically going to transform using any human or shape-shifting skills. So using Maul, for example, you'll turn into a bear and start smacking away, and then casting a lightning storm will turn you back into a human, so on, depending on the abilities that you're using. In bear form, you've got your own separate mechanic called Rage.
That's wicked. I'm a big fan of the Iron Druid Chronicles, so I'm definitely a druid person. What I mean is I'm going to be playing the druid probably as my next character. So I'm gonna play the witch, and then when the druid comes, that's my next main.
Maul will build your rage, and then the more of this you have, the more damage you do. There's even a visual indicator based on the runes on your back. You can see how much rage you have built up. And then there are certain skills like Rampage that will consume your rage in exchange for doing something. Rampage itself is going to have you charging forward, mowing everything down in your path. The more rage you have, the longer that charge lasts, and the further you travel, on top of the fact that you're also dealing more damage.
I think it looks
Some other
wicked.
abilities and interactions in bear form include Furious Slam that creates an earthquake by slamming
don't you think that's
stunning
awesome?
enemies.
Look at that.
You can dodge out of different animal transformations as an animation cancel.
Who wouldn't want to try that out?
You can do with other abilities already in the base game. The druid, being in tune with animals and all that, also has companions, can summon different animals like wolves to keep enemies away. They also have a howl when they are summoned, which puts a temporary debuff on enemies. And then in human form, you've got your own human-based abilities like Tornado, which will hold enemies in place.
Not necessarily a minion builder, right?
Smaller enemies away from elites and bosses. One of the more interesting that we've seen is the volcano, which when placed on the ground shoots out projectiles. The longer you hold it, the more it erupts and dealing additional damage. And then there's all sorts of potential interactions with this. Like, for example, if you slam near a volcano, that disruption actually causes it to spew out more projectiles. And they did also say you've got different...
Very clever. I'm just impressed at the amount of things they think of. I've not played. It makes me think of like Magic the Gathering. So I don't want to say that's anything like it or compare it, but it's just I don't know if they're borrowing from anything or this is totally unique to this game. If so, props to GGG just for all the thought and time and just creativity they put into it.
Skill trees for both human and shapeshift forms, with spell power being focused on human and melee for the bear form. All right, so that's a little bit about the druid. Next up is the huntress. This is the secondary primary dexterity class, and her base weapon is the spear. So she appears to be mid-range with a blending of close and ranged attacks. We have some examples of different abilities that the huntress will have. Whirling slash has you performing a circular slash that kicks up a spinning storm of wind and dust around you, slowing enemies and blinding them in its area.
It looks cool, but
I just leaving the area will unleash.
It looks melee to me, and I'm just I'm not feeling that too much. I mean, the druid is. I mean, he's bashing stuff as a bear. It seems kind of melee, close range to me, but I mean, I'll try it just because it looks cool.
The swirling storm causing it to deal damage. Then there is Storm Spear, where you throw a single copy of your spear. When it hits an enemy, it then bursts, firing bolts of lightning at multiple other enemies within a large area around it. There's Sandstorm Swipe, which is a whirlwind-like effect. Puncture has you lunging towards the target, dealing damage. The attack becomes more powerful the longer the distance. Rapid Assault is a series of fast jabs. There's Spear Field, where you stab the ground, causing multiple spears to burst out of the ground in front of you in a large area. Those spears will remain for a duration or explode if enemies touch them. And Blazing Lance, where you throw a spear that leads...
I mean, I think it's worth trying to play maybe every character. You know, I don't know. Maybe you think you're a certain class, or you play from a certain range, and then you try something new and you end up liking it and it works out good for you.
leaves a trail of fire in its wake, burning enemies, and throwing a second spear causes the trail of fire to expand outward, dealing high damage. So those are the 2 additional classes coming that we know about the most so far, but we do already have the names and weapon types coming with the remaining 4. So there is the Marauder, who is the 2nd primary strength class. Main weapon is an axe. The Templar is a strength intellect class. It's like a holy warrior, basically. Primary weapon is a flail. And then there is the Assassin, previously known as Shadow, which is a dex int class, uses daggers primarily. And finally, the Gladiator, formerly known as Duelist, is the last class, the strength dex class, and uses swords. Now, best of all, with all of this,
what do you think of Shadow? I like the idea of an assassin. Very cool. It looks pretty cool. I mean, they all look cool, even the Templar. So definitely worth trying out. You know, I'm very excited for this. A lot going on in 2025 to make the time go fast to get to all this new content.
Get these new weapons being added for each classes. Those also come with, of course, the corresponding skill gems that can be used by any other class. If you've been playing Path of Exile 2, you know you can use any skill gems from any of the other trees from any of the other weapon classes, so long as you meet whatever stat threshold requirements the skills have. And
I guess. I mean, you're telling me I'm learning here. We'll see.
Require you to equip a certain weapon, but if you meet those requirements, you can use any of the skill gems from any of the classes.
I might need my 10-year-old nephew to explain this to me. He'd probably understand it more. Oh boy. Maybe I'm overthinking it, making it harder than it is. So, you know, blast me in the comments if you want. It's all good.
From any of those skill trees. This, of course, being where a lot of the build variety and potential starts to open up. On the Witch, for example, that is my main class at the moment, there may very well be some really good options if I spec into some of the other hybrid intellect classes. As a Witch, my primary attribute is intellect. The other intellect classes being obvious synergies. That's why I'm able to work so well with some of the elemental skill tree. In fact, I think the strength int hybrids in particular have the best potential, considering as it is currently, most of the Witch builds that I've been seeing and I've been using have been going primarily for strength and int. Int for any of the skill requirements in the occult or elemental
definitely
tree,
going
but then
strength,
also
making
strength
my
for the
Witch
rest
tanky.
of it, stacking health otherwise. This would mean some obvious synergies might open up with the Druid class being strength int, as well as the Templar class being strength int, and with the Templar comes the flail. We might
int for intelligence.
Be seeing witches using flails and some of the flail associated skill gems in the coming future. That's the kind of stuff I really look forward to seeing all these
mix and
combinations. I mean, we could even see builds where the Witch is stacking entirely strength, for example, using an axe with the Marauder skill, because already I'm using mace skills with some of my Witch builds. I mean, technically you can use anything you want, given those attribute nodes, let you pick whatever attributes you want, although the strongest builds that we've been seeing thus far do seem to have be using some variation of the base class's natural affinities, but I digress. More classes, a whole lot more opportunities.
Well, that makes sense.
And of course, with these new classes come the new ascendancies.
Right?
Not only are each of the 6 coming classes going to have their own 3 ascendancies, but the current 6 classes, which only have 2, are all going to be getting 1 additional ascendancy in the coming 12 months as well. Okay, so that's what we know about the upcoming classes, weapons, and skills. But what about the new content? Well, again, they have specified that we should expect more endgame content, areas, bosses, and monsters. So let's first talk about the campaign. Currently, the game consists of those 3 completed acts, which we play through a second time on the cruel difficulty to get us to the requisite
cruel
level
just sounds
prior
very
to
cruel.
endgame
So
mapping. In the future, that second playthrough will not be a thing. Instead, we will move through acts 1, 2, and 3, and then be going into the upcoming newly added acts 4, 5, and 6, and then we'll be back into mapping. Now, it does seem likely that those 3 additional acts also mean 3
mapping
brand new areas
I was wondering
and more
about that.
biome diversity. Currently, we have Act 1, which includes swamps, fields, some woodlands, and castle regions. Act 2 is the arid desert with a lot of underground caves, and then Act 3 being predominantly jungle with those ancient ruins. Where the additional 3 acts are going to take place, that's anyone's guess at this point.
Their biomes are definitely diverse. I'm in a cemetery right now, and it's just amazing. The attention to detail is just phenomenal. Just like Grim Tangle, it's just they got it right.
but it's probably safe to say that
Good
we're
job,
going to be getting
guys.
some new biomes and locations that are not already included in the base game. Although what is already here probably gives us some good hints. For example, we do know that there are some snowy mountainous
snow is
regions that
beautiful.
they at least have built out the templates for, as you can see them in
The
mapping.
mix of snow and
This
fire.
isn't the only
Wow.
example of areas,
Looks
biomes,
incredible.
and location types that aren't actually found in the current first 3 acts that probably seem likely that they will be coming in the subsequent additional acts being
sure.
added down the road. Also, those new acts is likely where we're going to be seeing any of the newly added enemies and boss encounters as well. Both of these should be doubling in numbers compared to what we currently have. They will also likely continue having one major boss fight for each act map or node in
bash and
each one of
smash.
the acts that are in the game. On
Magic
top of
that
this,
shit.
eventually we're going to start getting leagues as well. This is PoE's form of seasonal content and typically tends to include some new areas and enemy types, new events and challenges, new boss encounters, additional crafting options and or gear acquisition methods, and sometimes a continuation of the game's story. You also
Well, that'll keep it interesting. I have my, well, this isn't like other games, I don't think, as far as seasonal content goes, like with a battle pass and then just starting all over again. So at least I hope not. I don't know enough about the game to say that, but kind of why I'm moving on to something like this. But, you know, a good game's a good game. I don't think, you know, if a game's good, you don't need to have additional content. Like when I was a kid, I mean, the game was, you got a game, you didn't get another game to the sequel. There was no, you know, additional, what do they call it? Downloadable content, you know, God damn, I can't think right now, but you know what I'm saying. So it's just, the game was the game and you didn't get another one until the sequel. And, but nowadays that's how it goes. You get fresh content, and I guess it keeps it fun. It keeps player retention. So I understand.
also get leagues that introduce entirely new systems and mechanics like town management and customization, for example, which was a big one in one of the recent leagues. Now, we don't know any of the exact specifics as of right now. What exactly is it be coming with PoE 2's first league? But if the original game is any indication, it'll likely be quite substantial. In terms of the new endgame content that we can expect to just be in base Path of Exile 2, currently, of course, we have mapping through the Atlas, in which we are also doing things like Ritual, where you interact with altars around the map, Delirium, where you have to fight off as many monsters as fast as possible.
A lot to it. There's a lot going on.
Which can spawn a boss. You got Breach, where you open a breach and fight a crazy number of enemies, all swarming you at once. There's Expedition, where you go to these excavation sites, place bombs to get the rewards that you want, and have to fight back enemies in the process. And then there's Bossing, where you have some maps that just contain a boss from the main game that you have to fight. And each of these activities, in addition to mapping through...
I mean, for $30, I've only been playing 24 hours, and I already feel like I'm getting my money's worth. So to be able to experience all that content too, and what's coming in the next year, and it's a free-to-play game, and then you get your money back in points. Like if you're playing early access, I mean, God, that to me that's unprecedented or unheard of. I mean, I haven't heard of it, so maybe it's like that in other games. But I just the amount you're getting for $30 or even for free when it comes out, it's just with more content seasonally. Oh, wow, I mean, that's amazing.
The Atlas has their own skill trees, which lets you kind of specialize in them, juicing up the rewards that you get so that you can continue doing them and get better and better rewards. Now, some other activities from base PoE that could potentially be coming to PoE 2 as well include things like Heist, where you're stealing rare artifacts to help your rogue companions. Labyrinth, which is this dungeon filled with traps that enables you to farm strong enchantments for your items. Delve, which is an infinitely generated endgame dungeon that gets progressively harder with increasing rewards. Simulacrum, a 30-wave encounter with monsters and bosses to kill, or Uber Blight, a tower defense mini-game that was incorporated into PoE. There's still a lot of potential based on prior leagues and prior endgame activities that base PoE had that could be coming into PoE 2 on top of anything that we...
I heard one of the developers talk about a possible Battle Royale version. That would be interesting. trying to get away from Battle Royale, but I would try it out. We'll see what happens.
Haven't imagined or that they haven't already done in the past. Of course, we could be seeing some new stuff as well. Something else that we can likely continue to expect is the developers' responsiveness. When talking about early access, they specifically said, we need the community to give us feedback about game balance, the economy, and the overall game. We will be actively monitoring our forums, subreddit, and social media, and delivering updates continuously throughout the early access. And this,
if you're playing this game now is the best time to give feedback. So, if you got a complaint, complain now so they can get it taken care of before the general release. They've even said it's the perfect time to do it because, once it's the game's said and done, I mean, it's, I think, maybe harder to polish in patches than it is right now before things are even out there on the table yet. So definitely, speak up if you have to about something. So use the proper channels like they just mentioned. Let your voice be heard and bring the proper changes and balances and all that stuff that needs to come to the game.
Isn't just lip service, clearly, as they already have a strong track record of doing just that over these past 2 weeks alone. We have seen several hot fixes and two rather major
last 10 years
patches,
of
both
the original
of which
Path of Exile. I mean, 10 years of good decisions.
Pain points. The first of which just came a few days after the early access launch. After that first weekend, they implemented a patch which did things like some dodge roll changes, so players were less likely to get body blocked by tons of smaller enemies. They mentioned adding checkpoints to the maps in the future.
Little enemies, so in the checkpoints being added, it's always a good thing. Quality of life changes are always good, so speak up.
So there's less backtracking through empty space for multiple minutes if you happen to go the wrong way and are far from the last elite that you need to clear to kill the map. Loot drops being increased substantially and currency changes, both of which meant we got more loot more often and better chances of finding and or crafting the gear that we're looking for our builds, and some map mod updates, so we're more likely to get better maps, which also of course means more elites, more loot, and more waystone drops to continue mapping. And then just recently there was another big patch going through which made passive point respecking way more affordable by about 40 to 50% based on their estimates, smoothing out the end game difficulty, making it so that there are less massive spikes in damage taken thanks to improved resistances, as long as curbing back any one-shot potential from enemies. And just in general, there was a bunch of much requested balance tweaks and adjustments.
They're listening, y'all.
So that about does it for this video. A little look at what is on the horizon for Path of Exile 2. There's of course still plenty left unknown, but as it is, I've been having a great time with the game. I plan to keep on playing, and I'm looking forward to all of the new content that is coming in the next 6 to 12 months. That does it for today. Thanks again to Path of Exile 2 for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to check it out in the link below if you haven't already. And thanks of course to all of you for watching and supporting the channel. That's all for now. See you in the next one. Take it.
Same, thanks for watching, and definitely, like I said, speak up. You have to if you're playing early access to make this great game even greater. We're looking forward to the content. I'll make more videos like this if you want it. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave comments down below, give some feedback. We can do more Path of Exile 2 coverage in the future, starting right now if you want. Hell, I don't care. We'll just... we'll get it rolling out. So let me know. Take care. See you in the next one. Peace.